According to the plan for the Rohit Sharma-led Indian cricket team in the last 3 months as far as Test cricket is concerned. At first, you lost the Test series to New Zealand 3-0, a first Test series loss at home for India in the last 12 years or so, and now India are trailing 2-1 in the high-octane Border Gavaskar Trophy. They won the opening Test in Perth, but that was under the captaincy of Jasprit Bumrah. But then in Adelaide, India lost. They managed to drew the Test in Brisbane, and now they have suffered a massive defeat at the iconic MCG. And now what has it done to India's chances as far as a possible spot in the World Test Championship final is concerned? Well, let's just have a look. Well, before we get to the scenarios here, let's just take a look at the WTC standings in a quick way. Well, South Africa, they have become the first team to qualify for the World Test Championship final. It's going to be their maiden performance in a WTC final here. They have qualified for the event that's going to take place at Lord's in 2025. They stand at the top of the table with a total of 7 wins, 1 draw, 3 losses, and a total of 88 points, and a percentage of points earned is 66.67. So if they win their second test against Pakistan also in Cape Town, then they are going to stay at the top spot with the percentage of points earned of 69.44. And even if they lose it, it doesn't really matter much because they have already sealed a place in the final here. Australia, the reigning World Test champions here, they are at the second spot with a total of 10 wins, a total of 10 penalty points also, but then that hasn't really stopped them from being in the top 3 of the WTC standings, and they have a percentage of points earned of 61.46 after the MCG test. And now India, well, they are currently at the 3rd spot and are in a precarious situation with a total of 114 points and a percentage of points earned of 52.78 after the heartbreaking MCG loss. New Zealand are 4th, but they are already eliminated from the competition. And then there is Sri Lanka, who still have a 2-match series against Australia remaining, and they are still in contention. And let's take a look at all the scenarios of both India, Australia and Sri Lanka. Let's just begin with, the basic assumption that we have always had in these WTC final scenarios videos, that there are no further slow over it deductions from here on. Well, there could be many more depending upon the number of test matches they have played, or for the very same time, the bowlers don't really bowl their quota in the stipulated time, but then we are going to assume that there are no further slow over it deductions. So now what about India? After the MCG test, they have a total of 1 match remaining, and that's against Australia, the New Year's test at the renowned Sydney Cricket Ground from January 3rd until January 7th. So India's best possible finish as far as the percentage of points earned is 55.26. Means that if India win the Sydney test, then their percentage of points earned would be 55.26, and that's the maximum that they can achieve in this WTC cycle of 2023 until 2025. But then, will it really be enough for India to qualify for a 3rd consecutive WTC final? Well, let's just have a look here. Well, India, what if, the BGT is a 2-2 draw, meaning that India win the Sydney test, they retain the Border Gavaskar Trophy, and it's a 2-2 draw. India would still need a massive favor from Sri Lanka. And what's that favor? Well, India would need Sri Lanka to win the 2 test series against Australia by at least a margin of 1-0, meaning that Sri Lanka cannot really afford a loss against Australia in that 2-match series. Sri Lanka, let's say, if they win the opening test against Australia in Galle, what they must make sure is that they need to draw the second test. And if that really happens, assuming BGT is a 2-2 draw, then India will qualify for a 3rd successive World Test Championship final. However, if India lose the BGT 3-1 or 2-1 for that matter, assuming SCG test is a draw, then India will be eliminated from the competition. Now let's just move to Australia's scenarios here. Well, Australia's remaining matches are total of 3. one against India at the SCG and two against Sri Lanka. That's going to be their final away series of this WTC cycle, and their best possible finish in terms of percentage of points earned is 67.54, meaning that if Australia win their remaining 3 matches, not only will they get to a percentage of points earned of 67.54, but they will also be assured of a place in the World Test Championship final, meaning Australia versus South Africa at Lords in June 2025. But what if BGT is a 2-2 draw, meaning India win the SCG test? Then Australia would need at least a win versus Sri Lanka. Meaning here is that if Australia lose the Sydney test, what they must make sure is that they need at least one win in the 2-match series against Sri Lanka, and that should be okay for them to book their place in the second consecutive World Test Championship final. But what if Australia win the Border Gavaskar Trophy 1-1 or 2-1? Meaning the Sydney test is a draw, then Australia must make sure that they should not lose to Sri Lanka. Both the test matches can be a draw, and that should be enough for Australia to seal a place in the WTC final. But if they go on to lose the series there, then they would be eliminated, and in that case, it's not going to be India, it's not going to be Australia, it's going to be Sri Lanka who will qualify for the World Test Championship final. Well, let's take a look at the possible scenarios for Sri Lanka to qualify here. First of all, the BGT must end 2-1, and that's basically going to favor Sri Lanka here, because if Australia win 3-1, then it's going to be very difficult for Sri Lanka. So let's say Australia win the BGT 2-1, SCG is a draw, and Sri Lanka beat 2-0. In that case, both India and Australia will fall down in the standings, and Sri Lanka will occupy the second spot in the WTC table, and they will book a date versus South Africa in June 2025 at the iconic Lords Cricket Ground. Well, that's where how the scenarios stand. In case of India, obviously their chances have taken a massive hit as far as a place in a third consecutive WTC final is concerned. Australia have obviously strengthened their chances, while Sri Lanka, they are currently the dark horses. Now, can Sri Lanka really make sure that they beat Australia 2-0? They would definitely be in the reckoning. And as far as India are concerned, one thing is for sure, that after the MCG loss, their fate is not in their own hands, and the fans will really hope, they'll really have to pray that India beat Australia at the SCG, and at the very same time, Sri Lanka demolish Australia. What do you think about the possible World Test Championship scenarios as far as a place for India in the third successive WTC final is concerned? You can let us know your thoughts in the comment section. And don't forget to subscribe to Sports Today for all the exciting updates and analysis from the sporting world. Until then, on behalf of my producer Pawan, it's Siddharth Gulati saying goodbye.